Hi folks, I tend to be suspicious of consensus for consensus' sake, but sometimes, just sometimes, consensus gets it right. Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's superb film about the man who invented the bomb, deserves all the praise it's getting. No spoilers here, just a few comments on the issues arising from the film. First, the extraordinary extent to which personal rivalry, petty, even trivial stuff, can shape historical events. Oppenheimer's hearing in front of a tribunal of the Atomic Energy Commission and its outcome owe a lot to the personal enmity felt by Lewis Strauss, the head of the AEC, a body that Oppenheimer advises, and Edward Teller, a fellow scientist. Of course, there were major differences of opinion between Oppenheimer and them and others. He was in favor of exporting nuclear technology for peaceful purposes. He was against developing a hydrogen bomb. He wanted some kind of international governance over nuclear weapons. But none of these opinions justified the trial, so to speak. The personal, including both men's sense of humiliation and the bureaucratic turf wars, played a key role in bringing down one of the most important figures of the 20th century. Another point, historical figures are complex humans, and their deeds often sanitize their flaws and conceal their contradictory thought process, the mix of light and shadow in their character. Which is why it's so important that every once in a while, someone like Christopher Nolan comes around and delves into those murky waters that are often beyond the reach of historians and journalists. Oppenheimer was both a cold scientist and a sensitive artist, a man on a mission and a lost soul, a model of purposefulness and determination, and a man full of naivety, whose womanizing was a reflection of his insecurity and whose politics, his admiration for communism, deviated from the horrific facts of Soviet oppression and from the truth which is so essential to the scientist. Nolan's script and Cillian Murphy's performance convey this with bewitching force. Then there is the power of the state. No one, absolutely no one, is entirely beyond persecution, even in a liberal democracy under the rule of law. Oppenheimer was investigated over and over again. He was spied on. He was wiretapped. He had to testify before the House of Un-American Activities Committee in 1949. And then the key government body he advised, the Atomic Energy Commission, held that momentous and definitive security hearing in 1954 to decide whether to revoke his security clearance and whether he was a traitor and a Soviet spy. His lawyers were not granted access to key documents used by the prosecution. Someone joked that it was like holding a hearing on your wife after being married for 20 years. Whatever the outcome, his immediate reputation was doomed. Key questions transpire from the film. What is required of a public servant? What is the limit of loyalty to the state? But more importantly, where do you draw the line between disloyalty and individual sovereignty? And stemming from this, can a liberal democracy at war, even Cold War, with a totalitarian system accept dissent from within in matters of national security? If yes, where exactly is the limit? If not, are you no longer better than your enemy? Finally, there is that all-important question, the ethical implications of the relationship between science and politics. When the bomb was tested, Germany was far from developing an atomic bomb and had already surrendered, and Japan was close to surrendering. Throwing the bomb meant thousands upon thousands of civilians would die. Not doing so would perhaps force the Allies to invade, and thousands of lives would also be lost. And then there was the issue of Stalin, who was sure to develop his own bomb in the not-so-distant future. The idea then was to send a message to Stalin and win before he got involved. The Defense Secretary of the United States even admitted it. Oppenheimer himself was not against throwing the atomic bombs on Japan, but he was subsequently remorseful, telling Truman, "I have blood in my hands." He had become familiar with Hindu texts and developed an interest in the mystical years before. So after the bomb was tested, just before the bomb was thrown on Japan, the two bombs were thrown on Japan, he had said, Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. That was a Hindu phrase. He then went on to campaign for international governance of nuclear weapons and against the hydrogen bomb. The film does not answer, nor does it intend to answer these questions, these all-important questions. It could not, even if it tried, because the answer to them lies within each person's conscience. And even there, we will be hard-pressed to find definitive answers that remove all shadow of doubt from our souls.